This is US Election Watch. I am Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's get you the headlines this evening. First up, as the Harris versus Trump presidential battle enters the last 8 weeks, the presidential profit predictions exclusively on NDTV. Allan Lichtman will speak to US Election Watch or Election Watch with me. Former President Donald Trump pleads not guilty in the revised election interference case. As the US election enters its most crucial phase, there is now reports suggesting of a possible meddling by Russia. United States accuses Russia of election interference, announces a range of actions against possible meddling by Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin says that he would support Vice President Kamala Harris in the upcoming 5th of November US presidential elections. And US President's son Hunter Biden's tax trial is set to begin in Los Angeles. He faces serious charges of tax evasion and failing to file taxes of over $1.4 million. All right, staying with the big story that we are tracking right now, which is around allegations being made by US as far as any meddling by Russia. Remember, these are not new allegations. They've been made in the past as well. In the 2016 election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, there were widespread allegations that Russia had tried to meddle in the US elections and tried to influence the outcome. Those allegations have come back as the election enters in its most decisive phase. Remember, a postal ballot phase begins in just a day, and ahead of that there are now fresh allegations coming in that Russia may be looking to meddle to influence the upcoming US presidential elections. Take a look at this report that tells you the story in greater detail.
Announcing a new policy to restrict visa issuance to certain individuals who, acting on behalf of Kremlin-supported media organizations, use those organizations as cover for covert activities and are responsible for or complicit in these malign efforts.
It's campaign season in the United States, and that means we're seeing not just debates and rallies, but also malign influence campaigns. In what is being described as the Biden administration's most significant response yet to Russian interference efforts, the United States has made major announcements regarding Russia's alleged interference in the election and unveiled a new wave of sanctions, criminal charges, and seized more than 30 internet domains. These actions are in response to what officials describe as a broad and ongoing malign influence operation by Russia. The United States has also accused Russia of waging psychological warfare on Americans as part of Moscow's sprawling campaign to influence the upcoming November election. Russia has targeted American elections with disinformation for years, as per US officials. Most notably during the 2016 presidential campaign, when Russia was linked to disinformation campaigns designed to sway the vote towards Donald Trump. US Attorney General Merrick Garland argues that the Kremlin's aim has not changed. The United States is offering a $10 million reward for information pertaining to foreign interference in an American election. The department specifically said it was seeking information on a group known as Russian Angry Hackers did it. But as this news broke, RT posted a sarcastic response on its website from its deputy editor-in-chief saying, "There are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and RT's interference in the American elections." While American officials have stepped up their warnings about Russian election influence efforts, US intelligence believes the efforts could favor Republican nominee Donald Trump, whom Moscow views as a Ukraine skeptic. Experts, meanwhile, have also warned that artificial intelligence has made it easier for countries like Iran and China to sway US public opinion ahead of November's showdown. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV World.
All right, let's discuss the story in greater detail. Jeff Saldini, who's the national security correspondent at Voice of America, joins me on the broadcast. Jeff, now these are allegations that are not new, but what may have changed in the last 8 years since these allegations came to light is the fact that there's now technology that's more pervasive, that can actually cause more harm than at what it could have in 2016. How do you see this? And more importantly, what's the word coming in from the government on these charges and allegations?
Well, what U.S. officials say is that the biggest difference between what happened in 2016 and what happened even in 2020 and now is just the scope and the scale of the Russian operations. Some of that can be attributed to the new technology, to some use of artificial intelligence. But in the indictments that were unsealed yesterday, the emphasis was on just how much resource and money the Russians have put towards these disinformation efforts. The United States Justice Department saying that in this case, in terms of the charges unveiled against 2 employees from RT, formerly known as Russia Today, they funneled almost $10 million into a US-based company to help spread Russian messages and Russian narratives through their influencers, through their stable of influencers. And the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has said that they expect that this is going to be part of the Russian playbook, that they're going to continue to do this. They're going to continue to apply resources in order to spread narratives that benefit Russia. In some cases, those are narratives that are anti-Ukraine. In some cases, as the U.S. intelligence community has said, that could be efforts to help boost the candidacy of former President Donald Trump. And in some cases, it's just to create more divisiveness, some more discord in American society.
You know, when you talk about these disinformation campaigns and even deep fakes and what AI can do, Jeff, we are still about 2 months away from the election. And do you expect, or you know, when you've been speaking to your sources within the administration and within the government, are they saying that, you know, some of this could actually become louder, more pronounced as we go nearer towards the actual election date?
They're expecting that it will become louder and more pronounced. They also say that they are on guard for what could happen after the election itself. Look, it's not just Russia, but Iran as well has been very active, very aggressive, according to U.S. officials, in this election cycle. And part of their goal is to create the discord and the divisiveness. And to do that, they are very possibly going to target what happens on election day and perhaps spread narratives, spread propaganda, and on social media and other ways to create confusion and concern about the results of the election itself. So election officials are bracing for that possibility as well.
Jeff, very quickly, any word coming in from the Trump team? Because, you know, allegations and charges pretty much go up to the Trump team.
I haven't heard anything directly from the Trump campaign on these allegations. We've heard some response, though, from the conservative media influencers who are allegedly part or targeted by this Russian disinformation campaign. And they've been saying online in posts that they are victims of this, that they were unaware of where the money was coming from. They weren't told. And they said even with the money that had been funneled to their media company, the media company that they work for from Russia, they retain control over their shows and their views and are trying to downplay it, saying that they are victims and not collaborators in any sense.
All right, Jeff Selden, appreciate you joining us live on the broadcast with those details. In fact, let's now get in the other voice on this story, which is what exactly are Russia and Russia Today saying about it, because these allegations are about them. Russia Today's chief producer joins me on the broadcast, Dmitry Leontiev, joining me to talk to us about, and tell us more about what Russia thinks about these allegations. These are very serious charges that have been made, Dmitry, and this is not the first time that have been made by the US government. They've been made in the past as well.
I will be glad to answer all your questions, but before this, I want your viewers to understand that the speaker that spoke before him, I only heard him, I didn't see him, works for Voice of America. It gets money directly paid from the State Department, and I find it a little bit laughable that the person who works and gets paid by the State Department is commenting on the State Department's decisions. But so your viewers understand. Now, about the charges itself, it's twofold. The first thing is about the indictments. There are two indictments, as your viewers have stated. I cannot comment on them. I mean, I'm sure your audience have saw American movies and saw the Miranda rights. Anything I say will be used against us in court. And considering we have a number of people living in the United States and working for us in the United States right now, I don't want to endanger them and let the courts hopefully decide something fair. I doubt it, but we'll decide. Now, what are we talking about? The malign influence information. That's a very weird way of talking about it, because if there is malign influence information, the Department of Justice or the State Department could actually show examples of RT either providing fake news or being disingenuous with the news or being are putting out false information. None of this, not a single example. They're using buzzwords, and we believe they're using this because RT is a thorn in the State Department side, in the American government. Every election, and you stated this before very truly, in 2016, in 2020, in 2024,
no, the difference,
they
Dimitri,
bring up
is
Russian
that now
malign influence.
AI can actually allow deepfakes to be created, which can be as close to reality as possible. So that's the distinction. Technology, march of technology has this downside as well.
That is certainly true. If you can show me, or anybody in the United States, maybe your previous guest who works for Voice of America, a single example of RT using AI or fakes. I mean, we're not a clandestine operation. We're a media company. What we do is put out there, and just look through it. There's no secret. If there's one single example where we've done this, we would love to see it, and we'll be able to answer it. But when you say this, when you say malign and don't actually show anything malign, this is a PR way of talking about, United States election. We are, once again, are getting intertwined in the conflict between Democrats and Republicans, who are both using Russia as a boogeyman in order to excuse their horrible politics. And frankly, our answer, which some people thought was, a little, tongue-in-cheek, is because we're so tired of it.
Well, you cannot accuse me of not giving you enough time to respond and to talk about the other side. So we at NDTV have been putting out both sides to this story, and we've given you your airtime as well. Appreciate you joining us, Dimitri, and we're going to keep coming back to that story on US Election Watch. In fact, before we get in our big exclusive interview, let me quickly tell our viewers that ahead of the September 10th, the debate that will take place between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, both sides have now finally agreed to the debate rules, the ABC's debate rules, which is that there will be muted mics. So Kamala Harris was not agreeing to mics being muted when it was not her turn to speak, and now she has agreed to. So only when the candidates will be speaking that mics will be live. This was a condition that the Biden team and the Biden campaign had asked for, and Kamala Harris and her team was not in favor of continuing that. But it seems that there's now consensus, and all eyes now on the first face-off between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. All right, shifting focus now to the big story and the big interview of the show today, which is Allan Lichtman, who is a presidential prophet, who's known to correctly and accurately predict many presidential elections in the United States in the past, and he is joining me to talk to us about what does he feel about the elections, who has a better chance, what are the criteria by which he has come to that and finalized that decision and taken that call as to who really has a lead and an edge right now. All right, Allan Lichtman joins me live on the broadcast. Appreciate you taking out the time, sir, to speak to NDTV World. My first question to you, sir, you've been closely monitoring and following many US elections in the past. What's your reading of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in 2024?
Well, there are all kinds of anomalies in this election. A major party candidate, Donald Trump, a convicted felon, 34 felony counts, facing indictments in 3 other venues. And on the other side, an unprecedented withdrawal of a sitting president from the race right before the Democratic convention. But the keys are the North Star of prediction. They remain constant despite the fluctuating events of the campaign because they tap into the structure of how American presidential elections really work as votes up or down on the strength and performance of the White House party. And that's what the keys gauge. And the way it works, if 6 or more keys, any keys, go against the White House party, they are predicted losers. Otherwise, they are predicted winners. It was this system that enabled me against all the pundits, the pollsters, and other modelers to predict Donald Trump's win in 2016. And what we have this time is the most keys that could fall against the White House party based on my system is 4 to 5, 5 as a maximum. That still leaves them as predicted winners because it takes 6 keys or more to count them out.
So how many keys are there? For the benefit of our viewers, how many keys or how many parameters do you really have on which you decide?
It doesn't quite work that way. It works how many keys count against the White House party, and it takes 6 to count them out. So they've lost the mandate key, which is based upon losses in U.S. House elections. They obviously lost the incumbency key with Biden not running, but with the party uniting around Harris, they avoided the loss of the contest key. Finally, the third key that they lost is the incumbent charisma key, because Harris, whatever you may think of her, is not a once-in-a-generation, broadly inspirational candidate like Franklin Roosevelt or Ronald Reagan. So that's 3 keys down. Remember, it takes 6 keys to count them out. And the only other 2 keys that are shaky are the 2 foreign policy keys, because the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine are so fluid. I think those keys will split and Harris will be down 4 keys, 2 keys short of defeat. But even if they both flip negative, that means Harris is down only 5 keys, still 1 key short of defeat. All the other keys are locked in her favor.
Okay, so between now and the actual election, what according to you are those areas where there could be some lack of clarity or uncertainty?
The only 2 areas where I see uncertainty, as I mentioned, are the 2 foreign policy keys: foreign military success, foreign military failure, because of the vicissitudes of war. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in Ukraine and the Middle East. Could there be a ceasefire and a hostage release? Could the Ukrainians stave off the Russians in the Donbass region and make further incursions into Russia? But my point is, no matter what happens with those 2 keys, there's not enough keys to predict that Donald Trump could regain the White House. For a while, I thought third-party key might be shaky, but the RFK Jr. campaign has fizzled. He suspended his campaign. For a while, I thought the social unrest key might be shaky, but demonstrations at the Democratic convention, turned out to be underwhelming, and the campuses have been very quiet. Nothing approaching the massive sustained social unrest that calls into question the stability of the country. That's what it would take to turn that key.
What about the economy keys? There's the short-term economy, the long-term economy, an area that the Republicans have been really focused on and making it a cornerstone of their campaign.
Yeah, the point of the keys is we don't pay attention to the campaigns. Based on the campaigns, Hillary Clinton should have won overwhelmingly in 2016. She won every debate. She had a better ground game. She was more experienced. She raised more money. She had more ads. My 2 economic keys are statistical. They're very specifically defined. The short-term economy key says there's no recession in the election year, and the National Bureau of Economic Research that tracks those things has not called a recession. You can't have a recession in just a couple of months. It takes much longer than that for a recession to take hold. So that key is solid. The long-term economy key is also statistical. It asks whether the real per capita growth during the current term is at least equal to that of the average of the previous two terms, and per capita growth under Biden is double or more that of the average of the previous two terms. I don't take into account these fluctuating polls or what the campaigns are doing.
And this is exactly what I was going to ask, that while speaking to you, it looks like almost a certainty that Kamala Harris is coming she's winning this election, but some of the polls seem to suggest that it's pretty much neck and neck between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
That's the beauty of the keys. They're not poll dependent. Look how the polls misled the poll dependent predictors in 2016. The most eminent among them, the Princeton University Consortium of professors, headed by the great Professor Sam Wang, gave Clinton, based on the polls, a 99% chance of being the next president. And Professor Wang said, if I'm wrong, I'll eat a bug on national television. And to his credit, he did. Then you have this clerk, Nate Silver, who just compiles polls and believe he's a great prophet. And he had Hillary Clinton overwhelmingly likely to win. And then when she loses, he said, see, I told you there was a 20, 25, 30% chance that she would lose. So it's meaningless. He can never be right and he can never be wrong. The keys stand above all of that. They called George H.W. Bush's election in 1988 when he was 17 points down in the polls to Michael Dukakis in June and July of the election year. And every pundit and pollster had written him off.
Indeed, and I think that's the beauty of having a very scientific modeling approach as against random surveys of people. So yes, there's a scientific approach, but I want to come to the fact that, sir, you made, which was about that foreign policy and aspects related to the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the war that's taking place in Gaza could be the factors that could be undecided right now. To explain to us what could be the impact that they may have in changing, if at all, your prediction?
No matter what happens with two foreign policy keys, success and failure, it will not change the prediction. As I said, right now I see the keys as split, which would be 4 keys. But even if they both flip, things go really sour in both of those wars, that would only be 2 more negative keys on top of the 3 she now holds. That's still only 5 keys, not enough to predict her defeat. So while things could change in wars, they always can, they will not affect my prediction that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States.
The Democrat camp would be delighted to hear this prediction, especially because you've got so many in the past absolutely right. But in the spirit of fairness, if the Republican campaign is listening to this, so what, according to you, could they do, because there's still 2 months left, to at least come close to any of what you're saying, sir?
There's really nothing they can do. That's the whole point of the keys. It's fundamentally different from all of the conventional wisdom about elections, all of the wisdom that the media spends hundreds of millions of dollars covering the campaign every day, as though it was a horse race with candidates sprinting ahead and falling behind. The big message of the keys is it's governance, not campaigning, that counts. And you're looking at the governance of the White House party on things like the economy, foreign policy, social unrest, policy change, scandal, not the events of the campaign. And that's what makes it different from all the conventional wisdom in predicting elections. I'm not fluctuating my predictions based on the day-to-day events of the campaign. You cannot, and no one has ever been able to successfully predict an election outcome by looking at the campaign. Impossible.
All right, Mr. Allan Lichtman, appreciate you joining us to decode the election and taking out the time and speaking to us. So there you have it. The word coming in terms of a prediction is that it is Kamala Harris who could be the next president of United States. So 2 months left for the election, but that's the big word coming in from what many would say election guru who's been able to predict so many presidential elections in the past. Staying with Kamala Harris, well, she's also turning out to be a favorite for Russian President Putin, who says that he would support Kamala Harris in these upcoming elections. Listen in to what he had to say.
У него было бы какое-то... У нас, значит, фаворитом, если можно так сказать, был действующий президент, господин Байден. Вот он, его сняли из гонки, но он рекомендовал всем своим, значит, сторонникам поддержать госпожу Харрис. Ну вот и мы тоже так сделаем, будем ее поддерживать. Это, во-первых, а во-вторых...
Раззавещали, значит, надо, да?
Во-вторых, она так выразительно и заразительно смеется, что это говорит о том, что у нее все хорошо.
All right, a quick update on Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, whose legal woes do not seem to be ending after being convicted over felony charges in Delaware earlier this year. Hunter Biden is now facing trial over tax evasion that is set to begin in California. The charges against him are that he evaded taxes to the tune of $1.4 million between the years 2016 and 2018. Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty. Remains to be seen what happens in this high-profile trial. All right, with that, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching.